back to the Ink Sink. I am Annie.
I'm Kaylee.
And this is our podcast for book nerds, fiction fiends, lit witches, people who like words and reading and writing and all that fun stuff.
I was going to start portmanteauing it and the celebrity names, but liches is a thing and not the same thing.
Not the same thing, no. Lit witches, we have to say it all the way out.
Yep.
Thank goodness. Actually, lit witches sounds pretty cool. So
I was going to say, I actually like it. Was it Bibliomancer is another one I've heard for that too.
Bibliomancer. Heck yes. You get your magic from books. I like that a lot.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah. Kaylee, we're doing news today. This is our first news recording for season 3.
Yeah, it is.
Did you like this big batch of links that I sent you because we were on break for so long?
Yeah, no, actually I did. This is probably one of the longer sections of news. No, it's totally fine. 100%. We have been on break for a while, but this is great. I was excited to dig back in. My one link that I contributed. You're welcome.
Thank you. You did great.
I try. It's quality. Quality, I try at least to make sure it's worth it. But yeah, no, I'm happy for many things. Mm-hmm. I also have several new books to look up from one of the articles linked to other book lists that the author had written. So
that's fun. You did more deep dives.
Of course, I
like
always
that.
do. If it's like me and my rabbit hole that I fall down whenever I start well, if you liked this, then check these out. And then I'm just 3 hours later, I finally I hit the last page on the search results, basically, we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, I have 5.
It's you living your best life.
That's how I do it.
I mean, otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, I agree. You're gonna miss a good book.
Yeah. And what if it's your favorite book? That's the constant anxiety.
100%. That's how I found T. Kingfisher.
Yeah.
It was absolutely 100%. It was you might like whatever off of something, and I think it was based off of my fantasy fairy tale retellings and stuff. I think I stumbled into Bryony and Roses or The Seventh Bride first, and then I branched into it from there. Yeah. I
always, and this is gonna taint me, I think, probably as someone who has a book podcast, but I constantly judge books by their covers, and I would say T. Kingfisher, whoever she has doing her covers, is peak cover design, because they always draw me right in. I'm like, what is this? What is happening here? I want to know. Why is this a deconstructed rabbit? What's going on?
It's so good. It's very good.
Yeah.
I agree. I love the everything. I really do enjoy everything about her books. So I'm not reading T. Kingfisher this time, guys. I know it's I actually do have 2 books from T. Kingfisher that I got for Christmas that I'm really excited to read, but they're both horror. And I'm slowly clawing my way back from a lot of mentally exhausting work stuff. In good ways, all around, no shade to my work, but it was just a little tiresome. So I'm very pleased. I just need a little longer before I dive into horror.
Yeah.
I spent all of my spoons on horror on Camp Damascus, so I need at least...
another year?
Yeah, exactly.
Good. No, you know what you need. That's important. Let's dive into it. Kaylee, let's start with the story that you sent.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So I was a little bit too young for Reading Rainbow. I never watched Reading Rainbow. So tell me about Reading Rainbow, and then tell me about what this new thing is that's coming out.
Sure. So obviously Reading Rainbow was it's LeVar Burton, who was in Roots originally, and then got into as Geordi LaForge in Star Trek, and then he actually hosted and produced. He was a producer on Reading Rainbow, in which he promoted literacy amongst children. So he would, read to the viewing audience and talk about new books and, reading and encourage children to read and help engage parents on how to get their kids reading and stuff like that. So it was super good. Super recommend, if you're ever curious, to go find this, episodes on YouTube or whatever. He's just a very calm, pleasant approach and super, respectful, I would say, as far as just in that vein, we're promoting literacy and I would say even just self-respect and decency for yourself, which I just quiet dignity, that's the word that I was looking for, self-respect, dignity and how you approach life. I think that a lot of kids probably in the 80s and 90s learned a lot. So he was actually on that. It was 20 plus years.
Wow.
So what this article was that I sent to you is just about there's a documentary that's being produced. It came out, like, premiered at the 2022 Tribeca Film Festival.
Okay.
But they're about to release it, special release in AMC theaters in mid-March, I think on the 17th. It's called Butterfly in the Sky. And it's a documentary about making the show and, like, the issues that they faced and, like, the successes and just how they went about making the show as they went through promoting childhood literacy.
That's awesome. Is Burton involved in the documentary?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's cool. I mean, his voice is amazing. Like, he has a podcast now where he just reads short stories, and I will just download it sometimes just to listen to his beautiful voice. If I'm honest.
No, he's wonderful. That's part of the reason, like, they brought him on for the show and to be the reader and to be the narrator. And he also produced it, of course, because
right.
His mom was actually an English teacher before she moved into becoming a social worker, and so, like, he was deeply impacted by love of learning and love of the written word, and that's part of why he really wanted to promote it. So I thought that was really cool. Thank you to Book Riot for reminding me that this was a thing.
I know that culturally, Reading Rainbow had a huge impact. There's, like, a whole thing on the TV show Community where Donald Glover's character just wants a photograph of LeVar Burton so that he can sing the Reading Rainbow song to it. And he's like, that's all I want. You can't disappoint a photograph. Love LeVar Burton a lot.
He was already there. He just wanted to have just this extra little thing that would make him happy. It was very cute. That was a really very adorable. Cute episode.
Plus, I think he hosted the National Book Awards this past year. LeVar Burton did.
Oh, yeah. They got LeVar Burton. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I can imagine that a lot of that, I mean, obviously a lot of the cultural resonance comes from the fact that he was Geordie LaForge on Star Trek, which is, like, still one of the biggest franchises of all time. And everybody came back, I think, for the most recent season of Picard, so it's, like, a whole thing. But I can imagine that tons of nostalgia about it because it seems to be such a cultural touchstone. Let's move into something else that's kind of heartwarming, or not heartwarming, but just kind of nice to see. The Smithsonian Magazine hit us with this one, the most borrowed books from public libraries in 2023. I should have seen the number one thing coming just because it had just had a TV show, but, like, so many other things have had TV shows. Apparently this was a good, not cozy read, but a good, like, literary read, and it was Lessons in Chemistry. Did you watch the TV show?
I haven't. I've seen a lot of clips because you can't get away from them on the internet.
Right.
I'm not sure what streaming service it's on right now, and I don't think it's one I have.
Mm-hmm. I think it's on Apple TV Plus, which is definitely one that I don't have legally, certainly. I see that others on the list are I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which made a huge splash when it came out, and I'm not at all surprised to see that. Whenever I go on Libby and search for, like, popular titles, it's always there, number one. Same with Spare, Prince Harry's memoir, and The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which is a story about dragons and dragon loving in the Anne McCaffrey bent. Yeah. I did like that they kind of looked through different public library systems here too. So, like, Verity, the Colleen Hoover Colleen Hoover book was one of the top ones at the Indianapolis Public Library. But Gabrielle Zevin's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is about two friends who make video games together, was one of the number one ones in the Library of Philadelphia, which is so cool. Like, I'm sure there's studies done about this, about, like, what various cities like to read. But I think that would be really cool to analyze more deeply, because I think it's really interesting that
100%. And, like, did you see, like, the spread in New York was fascinating? The different boroughs.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Residents on Staten Island liked Lessons in Chemistry, whereas Brooklynites borrowed I'm Glad My Mom Died the most. Spare by Prince Harry was the most popular title in the Bronx, while The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros got the most attention in Queens.
Yeah, like
love that.
It's so good for you guys. Like, I love it. You guys all have different, like, you can exchange notes and, like, recommend books to each other.
That was so cool. I like that. I've never really spent a ton of time in New York, but it sounds like a lovely place with just a lot of variety.
Yes, that's accurate to say.
More heartwarming news. Here, 3 in 4 adults can discern real headlines from fake ones, Kaylee.
We've talked about this before, too, and, like, I know that we've each had this sort of fear with our families, so this
was nice. Really helpful. This is from the Journalist Resource, which does deep dives into science surrounding public opinion. So they were able to prove that when presented with 2 headlines, one which was made up and one which was not, 3 out of 4 times adults in the US were able to discern the correct headline from the fake one, which we hear a lot about fake news and a lot about online misinformation. And this was very heartwarming because it's something that I personally worry about a lot. But also, this is something that my husband makes fun of me for, but I like to think I'm kind of optimistic about the human race. And I think that people are a lot smarter than some of us give them credit for. And so I was like, this makes sense to me. And I obviously confirming my biases, and this is my podcast, so you guys get to confirm my biases too. But I thought that because they backed it up with numbers and science, it was super helpful to actually see the data inside. So this was a study that was conducted by Charles Angelucci, an assistant professor of applied economics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Andrea Pratt, an economics professor at Columbia University, from June 2019 to March 2022. So this is very recent, which was very heartening for me.
Mm-hmm. I super agree. I think the only thing is, like, obviously it's still, I would say the proliferation of bad faith actors in the sphere of social media promoting news that's not actually news, or factual or whatever, is still a problem. But I think it leads more to news fatigue, because you're constantly researching to make sure that the articles are legit. And that's going to be not everybody, but a lot of people's initial reaction. And then rather than just starting to swallow what you're fed, you just stop drinking from that well, essentially. So I think that that's just something that is both good and bad, in that we still have to continue the conversation on how to respond to these bad faith actors and ways that we can kind of filter out the noise. But it is nice to see that a lot of the hysteria around the death of truth is not actually as warranted as some people like to.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems with having fake news out there, and the fact that people can tell the difference is heartening, but also doesn't address all the other problems.
Unfortunately. But it is good. And
yes.
Go us as a species.
Go us.
Go us as a people, a culture. We're not doing as bad as we could be.
Oh my God. If you are at all interested in journalism in general, one of the things I do also love about the journalist resource is that it offers advice for coverage of these topics at the end of each article. So if you click on this article from our sources, you'll see all of this research and all of the numbers here, but also you'll see a lot of tips for covering this kind of thing. And even if you're just casually interested in how media works, you'll be able to take a look at this and say, oh, okay, this is how maybe I should be researching this. And if you listen to our podcast, I like to think that you're probably a digital reading nerd, and this might appeal to you. Moving on, this one comes to us from the New York Times, though it was reported pretty widely. Kaylee, are you an Olympics person? I don't know what it is about the Olympics, but I fucking love the Olympics. I don't watch sports at any other time of the year, but I will always watch the Olympics. It's a problem that I have. I acknowledge it. But good news coming out of the Olympic Village, which is essentially downtown Paris this year. There are going to be bookstores.
Yeah, no, I love this article because, like, there was like this, like, the blocks that were going to be impacted by, like, the procession and, like, the person with the running of the torch. Like, you're going to need to pack up shop or whatever for security. And then, the president came down and was like, no, it's fine, because they started to protest.
Yes.
Let's be very clear. France
loves to protest. So they're very good at it. And so he was like, oh no, we're not doing this. We have bigger fish to fry. Right. It's the Olympics, guys. We can let the booksellers stay.
We know where they're at. You can secure this. We'll just address it. We'll just plan for it rather than have a riot.
Right.
And then I love at the end of this, so that was I just kind of, like, bowled through the entire point of this article, which is that there are these really cute, I had, like, this, like, there's the pictures in the article, I love them, the little shops are super cute. It's like these, like,
they're like little stalls.
Yeah, they're almost like collapsible bureaus that you can go out and sell, like, and they keep, like, water off of these manuscripts and stuff, and it's just hundreds.
Lovely.
It's so cute. And then at the very end, like, some of them were like, nah, this is going to be too much trouble. Like, I'm not going. And I was like, that tracks so hard.
French people are my favorite people.
They're cats
They are!
in human form. Many of them. Not all of them, but many of them. Like, I wanted the option to be able to go outside. I didn't want to actually be outside.
Yeah. Why did you open this door for me? I just wanted it closed.
That's perfect. Anyway, I loved it. It was great. Good that you guys have the option, and good for the people that want to be there and open for and good for the crowds that want to book browse.
I mean, like, hell yes. Like, the whole world descending on Paris, being able to read books. Like, that's the dream. I've never been to Paris, but that's my dream.
I will say this. That is probably the best thing in Paris. As somebody that has been to Paris and preferred southern France.
Yeah.
I did like the Louvre.
Okay.
It's just, Paris was just a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
It sounds like it was.
Yeah.
Or it sounds like it can be a lot. And it probably would be even more a lot during the Olympics.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
Which is probably why a lot of those booksellers, some of those booksellers at least, are like...
They're like, I'm out.
No, thanks.
Gonna go visit some relatives.
It's a no from me, dog.
Fleeing the city for, a week. Bye.
Exactly. The plague has come. I will stay with my friends in the country.
Yeah, basically.
Moving on. I think that we really do genuinely need to get that little intro music of just, we need to talk about AI now.
What else is happening with the robots?
AI. It's in Congress. Woohoo!
But not like in a threatening way. It's just they're talking about it some more.
Yeah. So Congress had a hearing. This comes to us from the Press Gazette, which is a British online news tracker. And they talked about how the Condé Nast CEO made some remarks to the Senate about the future of AI in digital publishing specifically. But then also they talked a little bit about physical publishing as well. Kaylee gave me cider and now I'm all gassy. I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh, no. But you're welcome. It's delicious.
It is quite good.
It's a local cidery, too.
Is this the cidery that we went to?
No. So I got it when we went to Virginia Beach and went to the Coastal Wine Festival.
Okay.
And so they had a couple of cideries and distilleries. So this was one of the local distilleries is what I'm drinking now. And then that was one of the cideries.
It's delicious. It's called the Apple House. And this is the Apple Donut Hard Cider.
We were not sponsored by them.
We're not. We're just enjoying them.
Very, very good. This is one of their seasonals. It was the apple cider donut.
It was very good. Anyway. So, as a quick recap of some of the problems around AI right now with digital publishing, the number one problem that a lot of companies who put out content are saying is the issue is that AI has essentially been trained on their content and is offering zero compensation to the people who created that content. We obviously here at the Ink Sync support creators. We want to make sure that creators get their due. There's lots and lots of problems when it comes to publishing and the economics of it. And it's just kind of one more thing, really, when the programs that learn off of that content don't even acknowledge that they learned off of that content.
In this case, it's like the worst. They're like trying to argue that the content they're producing from this is transformative, but it's no, you're stealing from it.
So a lot of AI companies say that this is fair use because they are teaching, and that is one of the carve-outs for fair use. Except that the spirit of that law is that you're teaching humans, young humans usually, about a topic. It's not about teaching your language model to be more languagey. That's ridiculous.
And then considering the output of that is going to be writing that heavily mimics, if not directly reproduces, styles of these very specific authors.
Yeah, that was where I was about to go.
Content that has been produced specifically to share with the public, but also to make money for the author and the publisher.
Yeah, and that's where I was about to go, is that on the other end, there is a financial threat because a lot of AI content is being presented as not AI content and is in a very real way usurping human expertise and human writing. And so the CEO of Condé Nast, which is a company that publishes things like Vogue and other magazines, both online and in print, went to Congress and said that Congress needs to take immediate action by making a simple clarification that publishers should be compensated for the use of their content in the training and the output of generative AI tools, and that licensing deals must be struck for onward future use.
Which, it mentions this in here, but it's like similar. It points out to like the deal that was struck in Australia and the benefits it's already having. I also deeply appreciate the direct request. Like, this is very straightforward. It's very, this is obviously, and like, this is what we want to happen. And then also, I'm hoping that it leads to more AI companies doing what that one company that we discussed previously, which was hiring people to write poetry specifically for training their AI. Like, then that's the approach, which is a benefit across the board. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily fully solve the question of AI, but it does certainly make it a more ethical approach to the discussion.
Agreed. We'll see where it goes from here. My guess is that Congress isn't going to make any new regulations anytime soon, especially with AI being still so niche at the moment. Like, we talk about it a lot, but right now its uses are very limited and they're not very widespread.
I think now is honestly the best time to get it legislated. Agreed. Obviously, because when it's larger, when the concern is more prevalent, it's going to have a lot more lobbyists from these different groups that have been established to just throw up red tape.
That's true. But also, like, we have such a reactive system. Like, most of the time, Congress isn't going to act until something happens to make them act. So I don't know if I'm optimistic that would happen.
Yeah.
They've got the higher priorities. Lots of crap going on in the world,
That is true.
This is just one thing.
You're not wrong.
I agree with you that this is the time to do it. Is it going to happen? Question mark. Let's move on to things that are going to make us angry.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
What did happen? Well, they won't tell us.
We don't know.
But we're pretty sure.
We have thoughts.
So the Hugo Awards is one of the top 3 awards in the SFF genre, those being the Philip K. Dick Award, the Hugo Award, and the Nebula Award. The Hugo Awards are a big deal.
And we recently, and to be fair, I guess it had maybe an unearned luster from its kind of presence in the drama with Dr. Chuck Tingle. Which, and to be fair, the Hugo, like, I don't remember there being any particular response from the board in response to everything that had been happening with that. So I maybe we just had a more positive outlook on the Hugo Awards than it deserved at the time, I guess. But tell us what happened, Annie. Or I guess tell us what's the fallout that we're seeing where we don't know what happened, but we've got thoughts.
So the Hugo Award has a different sponsor every year. I think that's like the most, like, there's nuance here, but as far as I can tell, there is a sponsorship system and there's a different one every year, and it is often in a different country. So this year they were sponsored, supported, helped out by a company in China. China famously has a ton of censorship, specifically of its own people, specifically of the speculative genres like sci-fi and fantasy. And it never really wants people to disagree with them. So after the Hugo Awards come out, the Hugo Award board has to release a certain amount of documentation about the nomination process and their voting and winning process. And as that came out this year, the Hugo Awards went off without a hitch, more or less. Like, as far as we can tell, the Hugo Award, like, there were some upsets, but that happens at every award show. No one was particularly concerned until that supplementary post-ceremony information came out when it was discovered that multiple Chinese authors had been excluded from the Hugo Awards, and also multiple non-Chinese authors had been punished or excluded in a different way because of supposedly how their stances on China were or the content of their work. I'm being vague here because they're being vague.
It is vague.
We don't know.
So Publishers Weekly came out with this particular article talking about this, and so there were multiple resignations. Some of the
this blew up
board members were censored.
Censured. Censured.
Basically,
once that was made clear, the public outcry became deafening, and now the board is facing some repercussions.
Yeah. So, and it's very clear. So Kwang basically was like, you're right. This is obviously, we can't deny it. It's embarrassing. And like this whole thing just, it's essentially like illegitimizing the awards.
Absolutely.
And if it happened, like the overall, like the fact that it's happened, you know, is going to make people like distrust the overall process and the integrity of the body, like going forward for a long time. Like it's very easy to lose trust and very hard to establish it.
Yeah. Look at what happened to the Golden Globes. They might never hold another Golden Globe ceremony again, apparently, based on some of the corruption charges for the Golden Globe Award committee or whatever they are. Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. I was like rolling my eyes at the whole story, so I tried not to pay attention to it.
Surprise! Corruption!
Yeah, but like apparently you can pay to have a Golden Globe Award. And that has, like, horribly, horribly tainted the Golden Globes as an award show and as an award in general.
It's just really sad for the people that thought it meant different things. So, anyway, sorry. And as we learn more, we'll keep you posted.
Yeah. Hopefully. I mean, my guess is that we're probably not going to see that much more information because there is absolutely nothing to motivate the Chinese portion of this problem into telling us what happened. But I think the Hugo Awards will probably see a fallout from it for a long time. Moving on. So, Kaylee, we have actually talked about this situation multiple times in recording, but it has never been published. So, I'm going to give a quick, because I keep going off topic.
No,
the problem
fair.
is me. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem.
You got it, Tay-Tay.
I both hate and love the site Goodreads. Now, Goodreads, for those who don't know or care, God bless you, Goodreads is a site where it's connected to your Facebook account and you can connect it to your other social media accounts and import your friends. And if your friends have Goodreads accounts, you can see what they're reading, what they have read, what they recommend. It's social media, but all about books. So you might see people's hot takes in there, but it's mostly in the form of like, I put this book down because I hated it. Not like, you know, your a racist distant relative on Facebook telling you that, you know, something's going wrong in the world. And it's like, I don't know, that all politicians are raccoons in a jumpsuit or something like that. But it's like, it's so much better than any other social media. I'm on it more than any other social media. I love Goodreads. The problem is that Goodreads is, like many other social media sites, a cesspool. It is owned by Amazon.com, which means it has very little motivation to clean up any of its act because Amazon.com doesn't really care about Goodreads. That's not its primary business. It's not even its, like, 1% of its business. So it's not investing in any kind of guardrails that you might see on some other social media apps to get rid of things like hate speech. Now, where's the hate speech coming from, Annie? You just said that it's fine, everyone's just reviewing books. Well, that's the problem, and that's where the hate speech is coming from. So, people have had bad experiences with the book review sections of Goodreads, wherein someone will either review a book super favorably or super not favorably and will get harassed. Another thing that has happened is that an author will post like the bare bones of like, hey, this book is coming out. And then a bunch of readers will review bomb that book on Goodreads without it having come out, without even ARCs out, without any previews out. And there will be lots and lots of problems from there because it's clearly either politically or socially motivated. One of the ones that comes up a lot is that the woman she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she was coming out with a book that was a fictional novel set in like 1960s Russia. And a lot of people on Goodreads got together and review bombed the book and took it down to 1 star. Review bombing on Goodreads.
Before it had even come out.
Right. Review bombing on Goodreads works pretty much the same way as review bombing on any other site. Letterboxd or IMDb, like as if it's got, you know, a star rating possible, then people can just go in and put that star rating on there. And they put it down to 1 star, all of them, and said, I can't believe that in this era of war against Ukraine, anyone would publish a novel set in Russia. Or she chose to pull that novel, and that novel did not get published, or it hasn't gotten published yet. It probably will sometime in the future. But That's the kind of thing that can happen. And another kind of thing that can happen is people can make fake profiles and review bomb that way, which we've seen. There was an author who has said that she was having a mental health crisis and went to every other debut author who shared even a sort of similar release date to her and review bombed all of them. Obviously, there were some added issues here because this author who did this was white, and most of the other authors whose books she was review bombing were people of color. So, like, there's a lot to unpack here. But basically, like, you know, we call TikTok a hell site, we call Twitter a hell site, we call Tumblr a hell site, we don't even talk about Facebook anymore. Goodreads has all of those same problems. Here is the other issue. There's no real alternative. So Storygraph, which is another app that tracks reading, tracks your books and your like reading stats and things like that. And that's the other thing that Goodreads does. It tracks your reading stats, like what you've read. If a friend of yours read that same thing, it'll notify you and say, you know, they just read this book and they liked it. They gave it the same star rating you did. And then that like really easily facilitates conversation for me to be like, yo, wasn't that book amazing? Or didn't that book suck? You know, kind of thing. Storygraph doesn't really do that as far as I can tell. Like, it nails the book tracking and library tracking, which I think Goodreads is really helpful in. It helps me remember what I've read in a year because I've logged it. But it doesn't really nail the social aspect of it, which is like the main reason that I use Goodreads, which is to see what my friends are reading and what they recommend. And I trust my friends more than I trust like big name reviewers because my friends are like me and they don't necessarily want to read these like 900-page literary poem novels. No offense to the literary poem novels of the world, but it's a problem.
The Wasteland, Annie, is that what we're...
Don't even know what that is. I don't want it. What is the Wasteland?
T.S. Eliot's like it was genuinely like half again as long as it is now. It's already like a lengthy monstrosity.
And then his editor took it down.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Love that. But yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like, I'm not going to read those, even though those things have like accolades and awards and stuff. Like, I want to look at what my friends are reading because my friends whose tastes are much closer to mine. Or if there's a new book coming out that I didn't know about because it's not a mainstream Big Five publisher, but like maybe my friend heard about it through word of mouth. And so she put it up on her page and I'm like, oh my God, that looks awesome. And I'm like, I want to read that. So I put it on my page and then like I'll get notified if it goes on sale, blah, blah, blah. What I'm saying is there's a lot going on here on Goodreads.
I did gather that, yes.
So this article, now that I've talked myself out, I'm going to take a drink and I'm going to let Kaylee tell you about this article from The Guardian.
All right. So this article actually went a few places, to be honest. Mm-hmm. It opened up with the story of this particular author, Kate Corain. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her name. I'm sorry. It's spelled Corain, but it might not be pronounced that way. She basically gave herself a bunch of positive reviews and she was found out. Her book ended up getting canceled and then she lost her agent in a book deal. It was basically triggered by a negative review and she kind of just started to spiral. And so basically this article is talking about ways in which authors have self-sabotaged on Goodreads, and then also ways in which they have responded and come back from issues that they encountered on Goodreads that led to their books being canceled or removed. And it's basically discussing like, well, is Goodreads as impactful as we think? Like, how much power does it have? And it's kind of like, at the end of the day, like the Goblin King. Mm-hmm. It has exactly as much power as you give it over you and your life. And that's like with any review-based medium. That is true.
Yeah, a lot of authors, I will say, spend a lot of time on Goodreads. And that is like part of the issue is that they put a lot of stock in Goodreads reviews and ratings because they feel that it affects their sales. I have not seen numbers that Goodreads reviews and ratings actually do affect your sales that much. But yeah, authors genuinely believe that it does, and that's why they get so passionate about what goes on Goodreads.
Yeah. So that was it. It is a really good article from The Guardian to just kind of just take a look at the ways that Goodreads has impacted personal health as well, like mental health, as well as like how people have just bounced back from issues that they've encountered with, again, with the faceless masses a lot of the times on Goodreads and getting review bombed. And it feels bad until you stop letting it feel bad.
Right.
And to be fair, that can be a journey, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of journey. But if you've ever been published in any medium, you're gonna get bad reviews. You're gonna get people that don't like your thing, especially for first-time authors that are being published for the first time. If you've only really encountered like criticism through your editorial department that you're working with your publisher, or if you're self-publishing, you won't even have that sometimes. Like the reviews on your medium that you're publishing through and like Goodreads are going to be your first engagement with the quote unquote critical or uncritical analyses of the public and the way that they take your work and how you, in ways perhaps that you never intended it for it to be taken. So it's very, I loved it. I thought that the take in here, which is just, you know, you have no power over me unless I give it to you.
Right.
Was a good take to have, considering all of the articles that we've read up till now that definitely felt more like this behemoth and like, no, nah, you know.
Yeah.
It's more of a cardboard cutout somebody's holding up kind of deal. Like it is a tool, but it is not a tool to like end of Romeo and Juliet stab yourself with.
Yeah. I
Don't
think
do that.
That's a good measured take from it too.
Celebrations. Let's talk about like what cool things are happening.
Shondaland, which is the production company behind amazing hits like Grey's Anatomy and How to Get Away with Murder, and also some of our favorite book adaptations, Bridgerton, is spotlighting 3 women in publishing, and you can go see that on shondaland.com. Here's a quote. Shondaland is focusing on 3 women in the industry who represent what's exciting about its future. Fanta Diallo, a publicist at W.W. Norton, is expanding the idea of readership. Sophia Kaufman was instrumental to a new labor contract win as an assistant editor at Harper Perennial and a HarperCollins Union steward. Deborah Gim is an editor at Astra House, a startup publisher taking risks on unexpected titles. And if you go to this link that I'm sharing, you can see an absolute font of hope and optimism for the industry moving forward. You can see interviews with all 3 of these incredible women and see what they do and how they are changing the industry. Congratulations to all of them, and of course to Shondaland as we move into Bridgerton Season 3.
Yeah. And then the other one I wanted to bring up before we move into our next segment, the Cast of the Republic has created a new literary prize for unpublished nonfiction for Black women.
Amazing.
It is awesome. So this is actually recently announced. So this was announced in October of 2023. This article is brought to us by publishers publishingperspectives.com. So Bibi Bakari Yusuf is the founder of Kaseva Republic. So they've announced this nonfiction manuscript prize very specifically.
So smart.
Yeah, it's brilliant. What a good idea. So for a $30,000 award, which is fantastic, the prize, I can't talk. So Bakari Yusuf says, the prize builds on the long tradition of Black women writers as theorists and intellectuals and provides a platform for a range of writers from Africa and from the Afro diaspora to follow in the footsteps of luminaries such as Anna Julia Cooper, Amy Jacques Garvey, Claudia Jones, Noni Jabavu, Audre Lorde, May Ayim, Ellen Kuzwayos, Bell Hooks, and Toni Morrison, who have come before. So we actually have spoken before generally about like nonfiction and women's voices in the nonfiction literary realm, and that it is not represented perhaps to the extent that it should be. So again, yet another great stride forward. So
Agreed.
That is a fantastic, awesome thing to hear about. And we are looking forward to seeing the results.
Yes, congratulations to everyone. Moving on to our favorite non-news section. Kaylee, what are you reading?
Why, Kaylee, you wanted to read a cozy fiction novel. Why are you also reading Crush by Richard Seiken?
I've heard of this vaguely. I did not hear that it was in any way cozy.
No, it is not.
Oh, okay.
So I'm reading Crush by Richard Seiken, which is a poetry collection that was originally published in 2005.
Okay.
And it won, because Early Rise, it won the 2004 Yale Younger Poets Prize.
So the poet was younger.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. So I don't think it was his first. That's why I was like,
sure,
confused. But no, it was just one of his first collections.
Okay.
It is not lighthearted at all.
Oh no.
But it's not like, I don't want to say it's necessarily bleak, but the intro describes it as the name Crush. It's not like a crush that you have on somebody. It's like the feeling of being crushed by life a little bit. It is a book about panic, but it's also disguised as love poetry.
Oh, wow.
So it's the idea of when you're using love as a means to run away from something as opposed to building something together.
Yeah.
And it is. But I am finally mentally in a place where I can approach poetry again that is less, lighthearted. And not even that. Like I've read poetry that has made me cry, but it's not been something I've necessarily really sought out again. And so this, I can protect myself mentally and emotionally and still engage with this in a way that helps me, I don't know, just it lets me enjoy and appreciate the artistry. So it is not metric or metered poetry. Just to be clear, it is modern poetry. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a rhythm and it's got internal rhyme, but it is not, again, in a particular meter. It doesn't have specific rules for which the rhymes follow, and it is potentially a little more heavy.
Okay.
But it is very engaging.
Who would you recommend it for?
People that are themselves in stable relationships, or at least happy alone right now. I don't know that I would recommend it to anybody that's just recently suffered a breakup. If you have and you're past it and you're comfortable, it will help you heal potentially from any remnants of help you move past any like lingering issues you may have had, or get through those things when you just really need a good like cleansing cry kind of deal, but not like when you're still feeling it in raw.
Kaylee, do you have a Kali Coda for us today?
Don't be ashamed of the things that you love. Like, I mean, it's, again, like, that's something that I'm very pleased to say is being more prevalent in, like, the things that we're seeing supported in popular culture. Again, stuff that previously was just kind of denigrated as housewife porn or whatever is not. It's whatever. People are allowed to like what they like. And the fact that, it's a fantasy in which there's smut involved and maybe there's pirates or dragons or vampires or werewolves or whatever, it doesn't change anything. It may not be somebody else's cup of tea, but it doesn't change the fact that you should like what you like and don't let people shame you. So it's a work in progress, I know, as somebody that has had to adapt to speaking about fandom experiences in public, which was not at all my original experience as a child. It is difficult sometimes, but you're allowed to like what you like. Just approach it, in a healthy way.
Thanks for listening to the Ink Sync. I'm Annie.
I'm Kaylee.
You can follow us or subscribe to us or support us. And you can find all the links to do that on our link tree. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Substack, YouTube. Where else are we? We're in a lot of places.
We're in a lot of places.
Find us. If you want transcripts, they're on our Substack, as well as some modified transcript by our darling Kaylee. And you can also support us through Spotify or Substack or YouTube or Spotify. I said Spotify. Again.
Extra Spotify.
For as low as $1 a month, help us stay on the air and talk about books and talk about things that we love and you love, and we'll keep doing it. Thanks for listening.